last year when I really started feeling more me than I used to be. That's the way that I say it. I started actually being able to get out there and put my story out there because I'd done it like one-on-one with individuals before, but I never did it publicly until last year. And I just started by I decided to publish my book and decided to just get on a podcast. And he asked me to continue coming back on the podcast. And I just became a co-host. And then I started, being able to be more comfortable in my story. And I started being a guest on other shows. And then I just really jumped into that idea of I have found my voice and I really want other people to find their.
Okay, hi everybody. Welcome back to Soulmates and Suitcases. My name is Lisa Brierley, and beside me is my amazing husband Scott Brierley. And we are excited to share this podcast with you today. And if you're looking for more of our shows, you can find all our amazing shows on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and we're new to truefans.fm. Oh man, this is a new one for me. And we're really excited to have our guest on today. So we'd like to welcome Marie Slider Henriksen. Welcome, Marie.
Welcome.
Hello, thank you so much for welcoming me and having me on here.
Yeah, we're excited to get into this conversation. It sounds like it's going to be a very deep one, and maybe we can put a little bit of not a warning out there for those who are listening, but I think an opportunity to hear someone else's story, and we're excited to get in. So I'll share a little bit about Marie, and then we'll go from there. So Marie Henriksen is a combat medic Army veteran whose journey through trauma, addiction, disability, and recovery led her to become an author, which we'll be talking about her book, a speaker as well, and an advocate for healing. Her book is a poetry book titled More Me Than I Used to Be, A Journey to Freedom. She's had many podcast appearances now and her online communities as well. And she encourages others to find hope, purpose, and connection. So welcome again to Marie Slider Henriksen. And maybe we'll start by you telling us a little bit about yourself, Marie, and share your story with us.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you so much. So I'll just kind of start with where I'm at today and just kind of let you know a little bit about me. So I do recovery and veteran advocacy. That is one of my favorite things that I like to do. I am somebody who collects resources and people and I connect them together. Like today, I had 2 networking calls where people just called me and said, hey, here is my story. And I'm like, oh, here's my story. And here's some resources I know that could help you and support you. And that's one of my favorite things that I like to do. And in the advocacy realm, the reason why I have gotten so big with it is I've been sober for 9 years. And in those 9 years, I have gone through a lot of therapies. I've done 12-step work. I've done a lot of spiritual work. And I've gone through many different layers of trauma and addictions that were chaining me down for so many years, And in that, I've been to the psych unit a few times. I've been to multiple different just mental health programs and recovery centers and stuff like that. And with that, I started writing, as you were talking about my book. Like I found my voice. God gave me my voice in writing. And I mostly write poetry about recovery from trauma and addictions. And last year, when I really started feeling more me than I used to be, that's the way that I say it. I started actually being able to get out there and put my story out there because I'd done it like one-on-one with individuals before, but I never did it publicly until last year. And I just started by I decided to publish my book. and decided to just get on a podcast. And he asked me to continue coming back on the podcast. And I just became a co host. And then I started, being able to be more comfortable in my story. And I started being a guest on other shows. And then I just really jumped into that idea of I have found my voice and I really want other people to find their voice.
I love that.
And so, yeah, and so that's kind of where I'm at today is just encouraging other people to find their voice, whatever that may look like. I've got this community on Facebook that's called Slider Babe, and we just started it in November, and it's brand new, but the whole idea is creatively healing out loud through community.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So
And so
whatever
so
creativity we're talking about, right?
yes.
Writing, art, music.
Yes, we have a guy that's on there that sometimes posts pictures about some vehicles, old vehicles that he gets and restores to make them look like old vehicles. And we have another lady that just takes a lot of pictures of nature and other people that cook and people that do podcasting and just other different ways of using creativity to heal in your journey. And so that's kind of been one of my biggest messages to people is like, hey, find your voice, find your community, find your squad, and share with the next person your journey because you never know who will hear your story and who it will affect. And so something I wanted to do, if you're okay with it, can I read you the poem that
Yes,
actually
please.
inspired the book?
Yes,
Oh,
please.
okay.
Yeah. So I haven't read this one to people in a while. It's been a while, but the poem is actually called More Me Than I Used to Be. So let me find the page. So, and if I can do a shameless plug,
Oh, please show.
this
Yes.
is my book.
Show.
Yes,
Oh, what a beautiful
So
front cover.
that's excellent.
So this is my own, it's illustrated by my own photography. And so like behind me is a picture, it's a photo that I took in San Diego. And this is one that I took here in Utah. And
Oh,
so my whole thing, again, just using creativity, finding the beauty in the world. And if you're interested in my book, you can go to sliderbabe.com. You can either just buy one for yourself or you can buy five for 60 and four of them will get donated into a facility and you'll get one.
oh,
Oh,
So
that's fantastic.
if anybody is interested, my goal is to get this book into jails, institutions, mental health facilities, recovery centers, all of that stuff to just share the message of hope. So if you're
And
interested in helping, reach out sliderbabe.com. SLIDERBABE.com.
yes, and to buy that book, five of them, and just literally give them out to people.
Yes.
That's a great
Yep.
gift. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my whole thing when I wrote this. Everything's just been out of pocket for me. I've donated so many. My husband's like, "Man, you're just spending money." And I'm like, I this book is not for me. This book is for other people. And I've had a couple people buy a chunk of them and donate them. I've donated a bunch of them. I just did a veterans cohort last week and donated 20 to the cohort and to the facility that was hosting. Like my whole goal is just to let people know that they don't have to be stuck in trauma and addictions anymore.
Love it.
You know? So this poem that I'm going to read you, I actually wrote it when I was a year sober. And this was when I was like, oh, something different is going on inside of me. And it's taken me years to go through so many different layers. But after that first year, I already knew that something was different. And I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And anyway, so I wrote this. And so this is called More Me Than I Used to Be. All of my life, I've collected pieces of varying sizes and shapes. I don't know why I held some close and others I hid behind drapes. Some people offered me distorted pieces, and as a hoarder, I couldn't see that even though they were part of a puzzle, they didn't belong to me. They were part of someone else's picture, usually those who were trying to hand them over to me instead of by their own box abiding. Like them, I too offered pieces to others along my path. And as I'm learning to step back, sometimes I have to laugh. There are some holes inside that make the picture hard to see. And other places I force the shape of a distorted figure of me. I know the image I manipulated is not the one God made, for He created everything beautiful just the way they were laid. At some point, I looked in other boxes, wishing mine was different. So I started mixing up our pieces, creating something magnificent. I started forcing pieces together, throwing others away, stealing some from other people, and my picture changed every day. Where I'm at now is trying to get back to the box that is mine alone. And with the help of other people, God's will is being shown. I'm learning how to pick up pieces, the ones I tried to hide, by giving them to other people or thrown away in pride. I'm letting go of the distorted ones that don't fit anywhere and giving them back to their owners so their box won't be so bare. God painted the picture on my box to be the way He desired. And I'm done trying to change things. It makes me just too tired. Slowly but surely, as I get things in order, I know one day I'll find the picture that God had planned for me that got lost in my mind. Pieces are finally fitting together in the way I know He wants. He's telling me I'll be okay in my heart and in my thoughts. The only thing I know for sure is I'm more me than I used to be. And I know the final piece of art is more perfect than eyes can see.
Wow.
That's
What a
beautiful.
picture. What a picture you just created in my head. And so where were you? What space were you in? How were you feeling when you wrote that poem? And did it just literally pour out of you?
So, that particular poem, I had been sober about a year. After I'd been sober for about 9 months, I really had this spiritual situation that led me to move. And I moved in with a lady who taught me. I I I am going to put this caveat out there. I do not judge or condemn anybody for their beliefs, right? And I am not trying to influence anybody. You all have to have your own belief in whatever higher power you have. Mine is Christ. Mine is I belong to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Some people call it Mormon, LDS, whatever you want to call it. I am a firm believer in that. And my roommate, she went to church with me and she had so much love for Christ. And I didn't understand him. And she just taught me how to love him and to allow him to heal me inside. And as I was kind of I'm trying to shake off all this stuff that's not me, and I'm trying to rebuild. And I had somebody in my church, one of my bishops, and he explained to me that sometimes God builds people out of clay, right? So you build it out of clay and then he toughens you and then you're good to go. Okay. I was already a big old giant slab of marble. Okay. And basically, like Michelangelo, when somebody asked him once, how did he create the statue of David? He said, I don't know. I just chipped away what wasn't him. And that is what I kind of started realizing that God was doing for me because I had held on to all of this stuff that wasn't me. I came from a very, very rough childhood, and dealt with different types of abuses and then rape and then military service. And there was a lot of stuff, addictions that I just kind of kept piling on myself that just wasn't me. And so as I was actually opening up my heart to love and opening up my heart to spirituality, I just started feeling like, again, a different person. And I've always loved puzzles. And that was just the thought that just kept going in my mind is like, Marie, you've been trying to force this puzzle into the way that you want it to, and that's not who you are. Like, here's your picture. And I got around that time, I had gotten a poem of this beautiful picture of what heaven was like. And it like went in through my head and I just had this visual of what heaven was like, right? and what the other side was like, and just peace and joy. I don't remember the poem, but I remember that feeling that I had when I had that, right? And it just was beautiful, and I just realized that there is so many layers that I need to shake off in order to be the person that I want to be, in order to feel genuine love and connection, and to be able to have that experience in this life, that feeling and that emotion in this life. And so, anyways, my brain goes into like 50 different things, but I had that experience where I just knew that I there's a picture that God had for me that I just manipulated. I allowed others to manipulate, and I manipulated. And that's not who I was. And so, anyways, as I was just going through it, I don't remember this particular poem, if it was one that came to me right away or if it was in pieces, because I've got some poems that have taken me 5 years to write. I've got some poems that took me 2 hours to write. And so every time goes different, but I just remember that was kind of the mindset that I was at when I was writing that poem.
It's actually quite ironic how you said it at a year sober. You were talking about the box. And I'm also sober, and I actually just took 23 years the other day. And
Awesome.
I had a friend at that point, I was a year and a half or 2 years sober. He's like, you need to get out of the box. He goes, you're stuck in this box of people telling you who you're supposed to be and your head telling you who you're supposed to be. You need to break free from the box. And I did for a long time. However, the box slowly went back up like this on me at some point. And now I'm on the other side of the box again, looking back, and it's like, I look back and think of how there's some programs that teach open-mindedness, but do it our way. And don't get me wrong, I'm forever grateful to those, because I wouldn't be the man that I am. However, I broke free even from that and went different directions in recovery, and I was able to find myself. And it's taken 23 years to get to the point that this isn't always going like this crazy, where I'm calmer, and it's pretty cool. And it's one of the reasons why we started this podcast, just to get the message out there. Because, for example, I might think your story's crazy or not get anything from it. However, somebody listening, it may change their life. And then changing their life, it's the ripple effect. We can change millions of people just from this simple show.
So I was just thinking, as you said that, can I read a little bit from my it's my preface?
Absolutely. We would love to hear it.
So I don't want to read the whole. I kind of do want to read the whole thing. Can I?
Okay, read the whole thing then.
It's not very long, but you're talking about like writing for the or speaking to the individual.
Yeah.
Okay. This preface is a blog that I wrote forever ago about that idea, because sometimes when I get overwhelmed, when I'm like, oh, well, I'm supposed to save everybody, or nobody's going to hear it. And I go through this constant pendulum of I'm too good for everyone, or I'm not good enough for anyone, and I go through all of this where what I have to say, is just, it's so important or it's not important. And so this is something that I kind of adjusted and put as my preface for my book. Sometimes I feel frozen. I can't speak what I am thinking or write what I am feeling, censoring myself based on what others may think. I worry I'll be judged or disliked by the majority for my words. Then I remember to push through that fear and start speaking from my heart. This message may help just one person. And that is who I write for. The person who needs it now. That one person is you, or the child sitting alone in their room, hearing their parents argue and feeling like there is no hope in the world. It could be the man who just lost his wife from cancer and is looking online one last time before he chooses to join her. Or possibly it's the alcoholic or addict who just came to in a pile of their own vomit and feels like no one understands what they are going through. I write or speak for the minority. One day, I hope they will be the majority with a new norm of finding peace by fighting to get to a better place, gaining empathy, love, faith, and genuinely trying to appreciate each day they are given. This message is for the individual, each going through their own journey who may need hope right now. They have known what it was like to be down with nothing except misery and contempt, lost in pain, controlled by fear, anxiety, and depression. They have imagined the world without them and know what it's like to white knuckle through the night, wishing to escape reality, knowing the damage that would cause, and so instead pray in earnest to make it to morning, rocking and crying themselves to sleep. They know what it's like to grab, reach, and crawl through despair or agony, barely making it to the other side to find love, empathy, and compassion from others who have already made it through on their journey. They have experienced how hard it was to reach for that helping hand. I hope I will never be ashamed to share my story. God has shown me that it has helped others find him. By sharing the light, he continues building my strength to fight another day. I know at the end of the journey there will be complete peace and serenity. For now, I will continue to write and speak. God will direct my words to the individual who needs to hear them today. To anyone else struggling like I have with writing for an individual instead of the majority opinion, I say just write or speak. Your thoughts, feelings, and entire existence is meant to be part of a bigger story that we will one day see, and you are meant to connect with individuals. Forget those who try to tear you down or who are envious and irritated. God may use your words to save a life today, and tomorrow they may save the life of the individual who tried to tear you down today. With God in your heart, just write and speak.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
That just it's left me a bit speechless, because it feels like it's that reminder that when we open our mouth and we say something, we absolutely never know who we're going to impact. And choosing those words, choosing to share your story, choosing to be authentic, choosing to be vulnerable, which I know that was one of the big sort of things that caught my eye with Scott. Like, you get this big masculine man, but he's able to be vulnerable and share what's on the inside. Like, that's huge. And so that preface you wrote is definitely, the person who picks up that book is going, she's writing to me. Like, I need this today.
And that's what you guys are doing too. Like, that's what the podcasts are, because that's the thing is, like, we never know. We don't know how the algorithm is going to share whatever, you just have no idea. And so I think that's wonderful that you guys are doing this too, because you're doing the same thing as me, and you're giving individuals the voice. You have me on here, and I'm sure that you guys have had other people on here who are still like really raw and vulnerable and stuck in their traumas, and you're giving them that chance to speak.
Yes, we are. Yes.
I found one of the biggest reasons I started it is because I went to some certain 12-step programs most of my life. Like, I went 15 at the first meeting I went to.
15 years old, yeah.
And so my whole life, crisis would happen, and I would always run back to the same thing, run back to the same solution. It was never, don't get me wrong, it was a solution for my drink and drug problem, but it never helped my trauma problem and my mental problem and my ADHD problem. And I've watched so many of my friends die that when it was actually kind of ironic. This girl started sharing about trauma, and people judged her, and she kind of got pushed away. But because of her, I found a solution. And I'm hoping the same thing I can do, even if I help one person that out of this problem. And it's like, because we all, like, and trauma comes in so many different forms. It's like, it could be as simple as, like, Lisa remembers something that her dad told her she wasn't, or what she heard was her dad told her she wasn't good enough to help paint the white picket fence. And to me, that seems like, really, that's it? Because mine was, I'm going to kill you. Like, and, but it's like, and to me, what the world needs is more about love. And
So as you're telling that, I was just thinking about that idea that there is assholes everywhere.
Yeah.
And you're always going to have people that are like, if it's not like this, then you're wrong. You've got
yeah,
the big book thumpers, you've got the Bible thumpers, you've
yeah,
got the Book of Mormon thumpers, you've got all those people that it's like, if it doesn't look like this, you're wrong.
yeah,
And screw them. I was just sharing on a podcast the other day that I am insane and I am crazy. There is a lot of different layers that I have, right? Okay. I can't have just one program. I go to my recovery rooms to help with the addiction. I go to veteran support groups to cover the veteran aspect, the deployment stuff, and the isolation that comes as being a veteran. There's a lot of stuff that goes on. I also go to a lot of different therapies, and I've got my spirituality and my religion. I have to have a little bit of everything, and then other times I kind of throw in a bunch of other stuff as well. But I have to have somebody for every layer you know and another thought that went through my mind when you were talking about that, there was something on my fourth step that I could not tell anybody. Like, I was so ashamed by what was on my fourth step. If you're in recovery, it's when you are dealing with your resentments and making an inventory of your own stuff. And there was something on there that I could not tell anybody. I went to this meeting and this one guy just opened up. He doesn't usually share this in meetings, but he said he just had this feeling that he needed to share it right then. And that was for me.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that this woman was doing the same thing for you. It was like
yeah,
in that moment you needed to hear what you needed to hear. Screw anybody else. And it
yeah,
wasn't like you all suck. It was like
yeah,
God's like letting you know, like, hey, I'm focused on you in this moment. And then they probably had their own experience with something else, where it's like this is just about you.
yeah.
And so I love how we have those experiences that it's like, this is just for me, you know? I think that's beautiful.
And I love the way you described the puzzle, like the feeling that you're putting your puzzle back together.
Here's a quick pause in the conversation to invite you to join our Facebook community, Soulmates and Suitcases podcast. Tell your story, amplify your voice, where we share upcoming guests, new episodes, and conversations from the podcast. And you can catch all episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Be sure to follow and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Now back to the show.
The way I always looked at it was that I think it was Dr. Gabor Mate talked about when we're born, we either grow up authentic or we have attachment. And in order to survive as babies, you need to attach and adapt and take on all those things that you are shown, that you are told, that you are reinforced. And for me, it's this layering effect over our life. And so my job or my goal or my mission in life is to peel back the layers to kind of rediscover, because it's in there, but rediscover the authentic part of me. And so like, because we kind of feel like, many people feel, I think, like I suck, I'm dumb, or whatever the negative thing is. It's just that it's been layered by the outside world, and we just think that's what we are. And so it's to peel back, and I love that whole idea of piecing back that puzzle, so you feel like it's your puzzle, not someone else's. We always try and push those odd ones in, and it's like, no, this is not working.
Yep. Yeah. And I was thinking about that idea. You're talking about the different layers. So as I said, there's a lot of different traumas that I've been in my life, and it's like every time I go through one layer, it's like I can breathe for a second, and then there's another layer, and then I can breathe for a second, and then there's another layer. And the thing that I've learned with that is it's kind of like, I love comparisons, similes, parables, all that kind of stuff. And so I think of it like a gym, like if you're building muscles, you can stop building muscles if you want. You can stop, and that's okay. But if you want to continue to genuinely heal, you're going to have to put more weight. You're going to have to keep going. You're going to either have to do more reps or more sets or add more weight. And so it's the same thing with spiritual growth and emotional growth. Is like there's always going to be more layers. And like I sometimes and I wanted to say this because sometimes people get overwhelmed and I get overwhelmed. It's like, when is this going to end? When am I going to heal? When am I going to be this whole person? Right? There will always be more to improve on. You know, there will always be more. But if you need to take a step back and breathe, that's okay. Take a step back and breathe, but recognize that it's not bad that there will always be more. You know, like it's a great thing. There will always be more weight to help you build more muscles. Awesome, fantastic.
Yeah.
But it's hard to get to that point. And it's taken me a lot of work to get to that point. Because I there's there's another poem that I wrote that's called Seat at the Table. And the basis of it is I outgrew the kids' table the moment I was born. And the adult tables caused me to mourn. I didn't fit in with the children. I didn't fit in with the adults. I started receiving trauma from the minute I was born. I was born to addict alcoholic parents. And I was in foster care and dealt with a bunch of different types of abuse and neglect and stuff like that. And so there was a lot, those fundamental years that I had to develop who I am. It was all, like you were saying, developing that attachment, right? I was the anxious occupied completely and utterly because I was biological parents, then mom and her boyfriend, then dad and his parents, and then foster care, and then aunt, and then foster care, and other foster homes, and then seeing the birth parents, and then all of a sudden getting adopted, and now birth stuff is just completely gone. And there is a lot of, I don't know who to trust, I don't know who to hold on to, I don't know who's going to take care of me. So I became a chameleon to fit in because I was so scared that I was going to be left. And then it's like I didn't know where I was going to be tomorrow, so I needed to make you like me so that I could get my needs met. And and then if my needs weren't getting met that way, then I became a peacock, which I was loud and obnoxious to get my stuff taken care of. And it was just all of these formative years when we start to learn how to love ourselves. You think of a healthy parental relationship, and these children are learning how to love themselves and they're learning how to accept others. I did not have that. And so there was just a lot of different layers going on there. And anyways, yeah, so it's just been a journey of just kind of trying to figure out who I am and trying to figure out how to love other people, because I did not, from a very early age, I did not feel comfortable in my own skin. I didn't know why. I've come to find out there's a couple different reasons. As an addict alcoholic, my brain, is just, it's prone to the addictions, but then you also have that I developed borderline personality really early because I could not cope with everything that I had going on. And so it was always this black and white thinking. And it was very much I'm going to dissociate. My brain is going to go bye-bye so that I don't have to face what is going on in this moment. And then I have ADHD. And I also found out over the last couple of years that I have something called hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And so what that is I have a genetic condition where my body creates a defective collagen. And so all of my connective tissues are degenerating. And apparently trauma can kind of trigger the genetics, and also my military experience and the toxic exposure. And then my addictions kind of broke down a lot of stuff in my body, especially because in my sobriety, as I overcame the drugs and the alcohol and the promiscuity and everything else, I started gaining weight. And I got up to 250 pounds, which just kind of overstretched my body. and it didn't kind of go back to normal. When I started losing weight, I ended up having to get bilateral hip replacements. And most recently, I had to get a hysterectomy, and I wear knee, ankle, and foot braces every day whenever I leave the house. But the point of this is, it's a chronic disability, and apparently it's something that I have had since I was a kid, but I didn't know it. Like my body just didn't feel right. I couldn't keep up with the running like the other kids, I was exhausted all the time. There was just a lot of different things, but it was one of those, I didn't know how to say what was going on. So I had all these different layers of just not feeling right. And that's one of the reasons why I turned to the addictions at such an early age.
Do
You know,
you, this may sound like a big general question, but do you see we have a lot of healing to do in the world?
oh yeah. Oh, completely. Yeah. There's a lot, you've got a lot of different layers. If you're wanting to touch base on that, there is, you've got the generational trauma.
Yes.
Okay, you've got the traumas that our parents faced that never faced theirs. Their parents never faced theirs, and it just continued on and on. And then we get the brunt of that. And then you have just our own traumas, and then you have a lot of people who are stuck in their addictions. And when I say addictions, I'm not just talking about the substance. I'm talking about
No.
the promiscuity. I'm talking about the codependency. I'm talking about the food. We've got all of these addictions that are going on, and you just have a lot of hatred and anger and frustration that is going on. And so I just did this cohort last week, and it was a veterans cohort, and we really focused on responsibility of emotions. And what I see in the world a lot is that people are holding on to guilt and shame,
Yeah.
which then turns into anger and frustration. But the guilt is not theirs to hold on to, and they don't understand that. And so they're holding on for guilt for something that was completely and utterly out of their control, or shame for things that were completely out of their control. When the underlying emotion, when you break through in all the different therapies that I've been through, in all the different recovery advocacy that I have done, most of the time it is guilt and anger and shame, which is masquerading. Sorry, it is grief and mourning and sadness masquerading in shame and guilt and pain. It's people are fearful, or they're angry or whatnot when they're just sad. They're mourning. I have this tomorrow. I have this opportunity to. I don't know when this is going to air, but tomorrow, May 30th, I have this opportunity to. I'm going to be speaking to a youth group
Nice.
about grief and about post-traumatic growth. And one of the things that I'm going to focus on is the different layers of grief that we have to allow ourselves to feel. And I can't remember how many. I think I had it written. Oh, I do. I have it written down,
I was
and
just
I
going to
can I
say,
can
if you could share. Yeah.
yeah. So the different layers of grief, right? You've got grief over our lost childhood or our innocence. Okay. There are so many of us in the world right now that had to grow up way too quickly,
Yeah.
or dealt with adult things and never grew up. That was me. I was the one who dealt with the adult things. I didn't know how to grow up. I was scared, and I used the addictions to grow me up. The addictions, my emotional growth stunted, and I started acting like an adult, but the emotional growth, stunted. And so then with me, it's my addictions and stuff like that. Other people I know, they had to actually be the responsible adult from a very young age. And so it's like, so we have to grieve that lost childhood and that innocence, whatever that may be. And sometimes it's people that literally, they just had a normal, quote unquote, I'm going to say normal, but normal is a setting on the dishwasher. you know they had a typical, growing up. There is no typical either. I don't know the word, but they didn't have as rough as of a childhood,
Yeah.
but they're still mourning their childhood
Yeah.
because that was the good part of their life. And then you've got people that are mourning their childhood because it was so bad and they didn't have a chance to have that childhood. So we have to identify that that is a huge layer that most of us, and this goes into that healing the inner child, you know? And so then we have to grieve the loss of parents. That's another one, right? We, like for me, I was in foster care. I had to grieve the loss of the parents that I was born to. And then also, my parents that adopted me, we have gone through many layers of healing. Okay. I now recognize that they were doing the best that they could with the knowledge they had and the tools they had in the 90s. Okay. But there was a lot of stuff that I wish would have been different. Okay. And there's also a lot of stuff that I thought was different than what actually happened because of my resentments and my frustrations and because of my blurred vision of what life was. Okay. But then there is also stuff again that I wish were different. I do not shame my parents for their journey. And I wish my childhood was a little bit easier. Okay. They had their hands tied from their own generational trauma and from all the legal stuff because I was a foster child. And so, again, I don't shame, but there are a lot of things that I wish were different. Like we had separate Christmas trees growing up, which always made me feel like I was separate because the state told them that they should separate the birth children from us because they didn't know if we were going to be permanent, and they wanted them to know that they still mattered. And so there was the separation that happened. The family went on vacations, and I was stuck with another foster home or in a camp. And so for years I didn't feel that connected. And so there was some of that stuff that was going on, and then there was also other stuff that was going on that I didn't feel safe telling my parents. And that is a mourning that I had to go to. I didn't feel safe. I can't remember her name. There is, I will think of it later, but she is a famous healer, or like she's got a book. And anyways, she was telling her trauma to somebody. And she was like, yeah, and I was molested at this point, da, 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 da. And he's like, well, did you tell your parents? And she's like, no. And he's like, that was the trauma. Not the fact that this innocent child got hurt, but it's the fact that this innocent child didn't feel like they were safe enough to talk to their parents about it. That is the trauma, feeling unseen and safe. So unseen and unsafe, and so part of that is that mourning that we have to do. That's part of that grief. We need to grieve for for the parents that we wanted. And then also as we're adults, we grieve for our parents as we're losing them, And so with that, like my dad just passed away last year and he had dementia. So I had to watch him degenerate. And so there's grief there, and then grief, with my when my dad died that week, my mom was diagnosed with dementia. And so now I'm going through that same. And so there's all of this grieving. I'm grieving the birth parents that I had. I'm grieving the parents that, my little childhood mind wanted. I'm grieving, my parents as they're leaving. And I'm grieving that idea as well, that in my mind, I saw my parents as one way. But as I've been learning and healing, I recognize they're not the same parents that I thought I had. And so I'm grieving all of that. So there's a lot of grief there that has to happen. And then there's the grief of death and suicide, right? You have to grieve people leaving this earth. Grieving, like people put a lot of blame on suicides. Oh, it's my fault. If I didn't answer, if I did answer, if I did this. No. That is a guilt that is not yours. You could have been standing there in front of them with your hand in front of the trigger, and they still would have found a way to kill themselves if they were in that mindset. 100%. And that's what, and if that was in their mindset, you could not stop it. It doesn't matter what you did. And so trying to release that guilt and realize it's not guilt that you're feeling. You are feeling grief. You are mourning the loss of a friend and mourning the fact that you could not fix it, that you could not save it. So that is a huge another layer of grief. And then the biggest one that I struggle with is the loss of potential life due to choices and genetics.
Wow.
Yeah. So I am grieving a couple different layers of what my life used to be, what I thought my life was going to be, especially because of my choices, my choices and my genetics. When my addictions, I trashed my body. My genetics have ruined my body. One of the biggest things that I'm still working on, I just had to get a hysterectomy because I have a couple prolapses, and I had to get a hysterectomy, and I've never had kids. Growing up my entire life, I knew I wanted to be a mother. That is, I've actually like spiritually believed that I have met my future daughters. I knew that I wanted to be a mother. But with my choices in my life, that picture got farther and farther away. And then the genetics kind of have made it so that it's not possible anymore. And so with that, that's one of the reasons why I ended up in the psych unit back in December. And then I did this complex PTSD program in January, because there's a lot of, my dad just died, which triggered me into some childhood stuff. My mom getting dementia, feeling like I need parental validation. And then also, one of the things for me was my mom, one of the big things that she taught me how to love as being a woman is the ability to have kids. And so then I started going through, who am I as a woman without having kids? Who am I, period? And so I started going through this. I had to go through this grief that I will not have kids the way that I always wanted to, even though I had made the choice with everything else I have going on in my life. And then my husband and we both made the decision that we weren't going to have kids, and with that, I already know that I had made the choice, but now the choice is no longer mine. And so I've really had to go through that grief of this is not something that's in my cards. Even though I had made the decision, we were not going to have kids, we had the plan, I would still in my mind imagine what it would be like if God's like, hey, here's a miracle baby. I still had that in the back of my mind, maybe one day. But then now the choice is completely gone, and I had such a hard time accepting that. And that's what it led me into the psych unit.
You know what's crazy? That I just connected the guests we have on this show. Almost everyone is like, I've said it, 12-step rooms, I've never heard my story. And we're getting guests that I'm hearing my story and my story and my story and
through other people, because I'm kind of in the same boat. And it's like, wow. And we just did a podcast yesterday, and the lady, not a hypnotherapist, what was she? Not a psychotherapist. Anyways, it doesn't matter what she was. She was talking about trauma, and that from almost the moment we're in the womb, we start taking on our parents' trauma. Oh. And then a few months ago, we had talked to somebody, and he was talking that we pay for the trauma for 7 generations. And it kind of really makes sense, because if you take on the trauma from your parent, when they were in the womb, they took on the trauma from their it just gets passed down, and until the cycle's broken. And really, even breaking the cycle only changes it just a little bit. And it's up to the next generation to shift it a little bit more. And on the podcast the other day, because one of the things I've had a really hard time with in my life, because I grew up in the late 60s and the 70s when it was violent, and that was my answer most of my life. If it doesn't work, just smash it. And so these soft people, I have no comprehension how they, it makes no sense to me, and it still doesn't in a way. However, I think the softer the world gets, the closer we're going to get to a solution and healing.
Yeah, there's a thought that went through my mind in that idea. Hard times create hard people. Hard people create easy times. Easy times create weak people, and weak people create hard times.
Ooh. That was a
And
mouthful, but it's accurate.
yeah, I don't have the complete wording, but it's, you can look it up online. But that idea that, like you said that things are getting softer, right? It's
Yeah,
because we have people who went through a lot of hard things are making things a little bit easier for the next generation, right? Because they are, hey, we need to make some changes. But what happens sometimes is when those changes happen, it makes weak people,
yeah,
not weak
100%.
people, like, and I guess that's a bad word, but soft people. So
Yeah.
people who, and now we have a generation, and I hate to say this, but we have a generation of, you looked at me wrong and now I'm in pain,
Yeah,
and that's kind of where we're at right now.
I
And when
know.
you've got people who are constantly, being coddled or needing to be coddled, that is going to create hard times later on,
Yeah,
which is going to create
100%.
hard people, and it's going to go through the cycle, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. And
And so
when you
that's just that thought that I went in, is there's this, we have to find this middle ground.
And hopefully it's not to get hard over the fact that there's another big, huge war where everybody's got to come home with trauma like my grandparents came home.
yeah, that there are other
Yeah.
options. Yeah.
But like
And
I
that's why I
said,
would say this.
trauma's trauma. So it's,
Yeah.
Yes. And that's the thing, is we've got to find this middle ground of, how do we continue move, how do we process through what we're going through without putting the blame on other people? Because that's kind of what happens, is we put
yeah,
the blame on other people for our trauma, and we put the responsibility to heal
on other
from
people.
our trauma on other people. And that is where that middle ground has to be. It's, we are responsible for our own healing, and we are responsible for our trauma responses.
So
Yes.
I have a little bit of a story about that because being around AA, and then long story short, I was really hurting and I really wanted to just kill myself. And my buddy talks me into going to this self-development class. It's 3 days. And by the third day, all they're doing is upselling me for the next class and the next class and the next class. And I walk out to my Harley, which they're not cheap, and I went to put my leg over it. And I say this story a lot because it's about investing. And my knee got onto the seat, and it's like this light bulb went on, and it's like, if my bike mechanic told me I had to put 5 grand into my bike tomorrow, my credit card would be out in a heartbeat. But here these people are throwing me a life preserver, saying things might be different. And I'm angry at them because I won't pull out and invest in myself. So I won't say I didn't go in begrudgingly. I did go in begrudgingly and put my Visa card down and paid for the next course. And the next course is actually where I met my wife.
So there you go.
And ironically enough, if COVID didn't happen,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have
wouldn't have
met
met
my
her.
wife.
We wouldn't.
Wow.
So it is, it's to find, it's to understand and see the gratitude in your circumstance in some way. That's important. But I do want to go back to, you're talking about grief, and I feel like I see a lot of friends and family hold on so tightly to those past events and memories, that and I don't believe there's a blanket sort of path to go on, but how do you start to let go?
You feel it. You have to identify what is going on. And I will say this, and I will shout it on the rooftops: you cannot do it by yourself.
That's
You
the
need
big,
somebody to hold a mirror to your face. You have to. Go
However,
ahead.
though,
yeah,
nobody's coming to save you.
No, you have to find the person.
Yes.
yes,
That's the thing, is you have to. I'm trying to think. There's another poem that I wrote. Yeah, I've written so many, but oh, which one am I thinking? Sorry, my brain is going crazy. But
that's good. That means this
it's,
is a
I've
great
lost it. Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah, I've lost it for a second. But the idea is that we cannot do this on our own. And
No.
we have to actually take a step back. If we are responding in a negative way, to somebody else, we have to realize like, hey, I don't want to respond that way. And that is kind of where it starts. Is you say, I don't want to respond this way. This is hurting myself. This is hurting relationships. This is hurting other people. I don't want to. And that's the thing, is everybody has to make the choice. Okay. If you want to continue living that way, so be it. Do it. You will find people that'll be in your life still.
Yeah.
You'll be able to move forward. Okay, that's awesome. If that's what you want to continue, that's fine. But if you find yourself like saying, hey, there is something here that I don't like, that is where you start. Is you say, okay, why am I acting like this? And then you have to go in and say, okay, what am I feeling when I'm acting this way? Where did that feeling come from? And so I will go into dialectic behavioral therapy is really what made so many changes with me. Dialectic so there's dialectic behavioral therapy, and then there's cognitive processing therapy. So dialectic behavioral therapy is this huge thing, and I'm in another class right now, which is fantastic. But it kind of helps you recognize how you're talking to yourself. Okay? And how you're shaming yourself and how you're shaming other people or this, that, and the other. It goes into, it's basically, my brain says that it has to be one or the other. This person is either good or they're not.
Yeah.
Okay. My brain is telling me this is a safe person or it's not a safe person. If it's not a safe person, this is how I'm responding to this person. And I'm putting in, I can't do this, don't do this, I should do this. And I'm talking to myself all these different ways. And I'm thinking about other people. There is no way to see that this person can be have different dynamics. Okay. So that was kind of like where I started. But the one that really made the change was the cognitive processing therapy. I said dialectic, and that was where my beginning stages was, is how am I talking to myself? Cognitive processing therapy and how am I viewing other people? Cognitive processing therapy is where you start identifying the stuck points. Okay. The stuck points and the lies that you're telling yourself. All right. I am responding negatively to men anytime I'm around men, either over sexualizing them or viewing them as predators because I was raped and therefore all men are rapists. And so when I started identifying, oh, this is why I'm responding this way. And it's the same thing with my past over sexualization that I have, or oh, I am always a victim. I will always be a victim. And so I am responding as if everybody's trying to attack me and I'm taking everything personally. Right. And so I had to have somebody help me identify, okay, I'm either over sexualizing people or I'm thinking that they're going to hurt me or I need to use them because my needs aren't being met. And I had to realize I'm not okay with how I'm treating people. And wait, I'm not okay with how I'm letting other people treat me either. Like, there is something inside of me that doesn't feel right. I need to identify what is going on. So I first had to identify what were the lies that I was telling myself. And then when was the first time I told myself that lie? And usually it goes back to whatever traumas that I had been in. But I had to have somebody help me do that. And so some form of therapy, 12-step work helped me a lot too, is identify, doing those, that inventory. Why do I have this resentment for this person? Usually it's because I'm insecure because of a choice that I made. Mm-hmm. I'm pissed off at this person, but it's usually, well, I hurt them. And it just turns into this whole like, okay, what is really going on? I have to have somebody help me view inside. Yeah. So that's kind of the start for me.
Yeah, and to go from there. That's one of the neat things nowadays, though. There are several options out there on what sort of therapy that can help you. And, a lot of people will go to a therapist and go, oh yeah, I like my therapist. But they don't really go anywhere with it. Like they're kind of like, they're good. And so it's the understanding that not everybody will align with you or serve you best, right? So being able to choose other possible people or choose other venues.
So I have to say one thing too about that. God can't heal who you're pretending to be, and neither can a doctor.
Ooh.
I like
So
that.
that is a big one too. If your therapist isn't working for you, this is where you have to really internalize. Am I being selectively honest? Am I talking about this so they don't ask me about this?
Mm-hmm.
Am I actually telling the honest truth? Am I actually cutting open my soul and bearing it? Because if I'm not, the doctor can't help me. So if you are utilizing a therapist who you feel is not helping you, check yourself first. Always, always check yourself. And then you can say, okay, yes, I am being honest, but there is a layer that this doctor is not ready to help me. And that's fine. I actually had a therapist that told me, you are beyond me. I cannot help you anymore. I need you to find someone else. And I thought that was the coolest thing. And I've had to do
Oh
that with
yeah.
other therapists. Yeah. And I've had to do that with other therapists. Okay, you helped me during this amazing part, but I'm ready for a next section. Okay. And so then, yes, finding a different therapist. And then I will also say, if you are as insane as I am, talk therapy does not cut
Not
it.
work.
Talk therapy is where I just go in there and I just share what I have going on. No, I have to have work. I have to have homework. I have to have a program of stuff to do. And that's one of the reasons why I like recovery, my recovery group, right? Is because there's work that I get to do. And I've had to go with different sponsors, and I've had to go with different therapists in my therapy. And in church, I actually had to leave one of my wards, which I if you don't know LDS, like it's different wards. It's like different classes in the same school. If you think about it that way, right? You've got different classes, and so it's a ward, okay? And I had to leave one ward because I felt like a number there, and like it wasn't any shame or blame for them. I just didn't feel connected. And then I had the feeling, I prayed about it, and I, had a dream, and it said, go to this one. And I went to this one and I flourished. I flourished. And it was because I was ready to as well. And that's the thing, is like different resources are there when you need it. But yes, sometimes we have to shop around. I say therapy, recovery, mental health, spirituality, everything is like a buffet. Okay. The thing about a buffet, okay, you can't just walk into a buffet and say, oh, I know what I like and what I don't like. No, you don't, because it's different every day. Every
Yeah.
day, you've got different people that cook it. You've got different things. You do not know what you are going to like until you try it. So you have to go make that round where you take a little bit of everything on the plate and you say, okay, I'm going to try this. And you actually have to try it. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. Okay, now I've narrowed it down. Here is 5 things that I like. Okay, so then I'm going to go back and I'm going to get a plate of those 5 things. Then I'll be like, well, this is what I like the most. So then I'm going to go back and get a third plate, right? Because that's how buffets work. And that's how I have had to do with therapy and recovery and spirituality. Is I had to go and I had to try all these different things. When somebody said put your glasses under your bed at night so that you have to get on your knees and pick them up and you might as well pray while you're there, I was like, all right, I'll try it. Like different random things. Put a rock under your head so that you remember to pray, or whatever it is, make sure that you go and write a gratitude list every day, and I tried that. And I mean, that was fun and that was great, but I always write something I'm grateful for in my journal, but I don't do it so regimented anymore. And so you just have to try. And I know I talk about God and spirituality a lot. The other thing that I want to say, okay, is whatever you want to call a higher power. It doesn't matter if it's positivity. It doesn't matter if it's spirituality. It doesn't matter if it's God, Christ, Buddha, Mother Nature, whatever you want to call it. The thing that I have learned is that we have to have some sort of power that is greater than ourselves that we can turn to. And sometimes that is just that we call it a GOD, group of drunks. All right. And sometimes, what is it? GOD, group of drunks, good orderly
Gus.
direction.
There's Gus too. I can't remember what it stands
God,
for.
universe, and
Oh
source.
yeah.
Yeah. So
But
it
it's like,
doesn't
oh,
it doesn't matter what that higher power is. You have to recognize that there is a power that wants you to die. There is a power that wants you to live. and you've got to reach out to that power. And sometimes it is just therapy. And that's why I'm saying, like, you have to have something outside of yourself to help you. You can't just do it on your own. So for me, it's with a higher power and with it's some form of person to help me. What were you going to say? I know I
It's funny,
Yeah.
that's okay. It's
John.
funny how I just figured, or I shouldn't say figured this, it just dawned on me. I was back in Canada and I was going to lots of meetings because they're readily available. And all of a sudden it dawns on me, like all my years I've said sponsors haven't worked.
Final pause. If you've got a message on your heart and want to be our guest, don't be shy. We'd love to hear from you. Visit forwardwalkingchoices.com, scroll to the Soulmates and Suitcases podcast section, and click apply here. Now back to the show.
He's angry like, however, in all the years of asking somebody to be my sponsor, I've never went to them, have you done the steps? Have you taken people through the steps? Have you done, like, it would all be, oh, he's at me, so maybe he can help me learn about my anger. And it's like, and I just recently got a new sponsor. He's in Canada and I'm in Thailand, but we work on Zoom, and he took me through the steps, and I swear it was one of the first times I've actually really seen my self-centeredness and living in the fears that I live in and all that sort of stuff, rather than how big and bad and ugly Scott was. Because that's all my steps were before that. And that's all just trauma-based stuff. It's not getting to the core of what makes me tick and what will actually help me.
So the when you're saying that, it reminds me of my journey a little bit. Okay. My first 2 years, I did not fully do the steps. Okay. My sponsor, I had the most amazing sponsor, and she said, Marie, you are going to kill yourself or you're going to drink. We need to do your top 3 inventories and your top 3 amends, the things that are going to kill you. And we're going to keep going because you just need to break this surface right now. That's it. I didn't even start sponsoring until last year at 8 years sober. My whole thing is you have to take it at the pace that you have to take it.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can't hold on to contempt prior to investigation. You got to try it. And then you have to open up your heart, like whatever, like I said, whatever program you use, whether it's therapy, whether it's church, whether it's a recovery group. I have to have all 3. Okay. But you have to take it in little layers. And so each one of your sponsors taught you a new thing about yourself in that moment that you needed it. It helped you stick around. And that's the thing, is sometimes our negative patterns of behavior, even if it is like self-judgment and it's condemnation of other people, sometimes that is what keeps us alive. And so the thing is we can't hold on to judgment of that either. We can't hold on to condemnation. We have to, instead of feeling the guilt and the shame, feel the mourning. I wish that it would have been something different. I wish that I would have been ready earlier. I wish that I would have done this. Let me feel the grief and let me feel the sadness that it wasn't the way that I wanted it to be. And so there's a, yeah, go ahead.
For me, I kind of think of that a little different. Like, I'm really thankful for the crazy past in recovery that I had, because it's made the person who I am. Mm-hmm. And it's like, was it last year or the year before, I went back to Hamilton where I first sobered up, and I was talking to one of my first sponsors, and he actually made amends to me. He goes, I was your sponsor at one time. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, I did you a really big disservice that I never took you through the steps, but I didn't know. And I'm like, well, then you didn't owe me an amends because you didn't know. And he goes, but a little bit into my defense, me and Martin, his sponsor, he goes, we were stealing cars together. So if you had stayed in the same circle, you would have been stealing cars with us eventually. And does that make it right or wrong? No, it just is. Because it's helped carve out where I've become. And if I didn't become who I am, I wouldn't be having this amazing conversation.
Yeah.
And like I did what you did. I laughed when he told me that. It was like, no wonder why you never worked and you always had money.
That's funny. Yeah. Well, the thing that I've learned is our journeys make us who we are. And like you made the comment, it just is.
Yeah.
And that is the biggest thing that I've learned, radical acceptance. One of the best therapies that I did was acceptance and commitment therapy. And so in that therapy, you learn how to live in the radical acceptance and make choices based on your values. And that is the whole thing of all of this healing is like letting go of the responses that don't serve you anymore without condemnation and just saying, okay, this and as I said before, you have to recognize how you're treating other people and how you're treating yourself. And that's kind of where it starts is you have to recognize there is a definition of humility in the 12 and 12. And it says a clear understanding of who and what we really are, followed by a sincere desire to become what we could be. It doesn't say condemn, it doesn't say shame. A
No.
clear understanding of where we are, and that means having compassion for where you are. And that's the big thing is like all of this therapy stuff and step work and spiritual stuff, repentance, all of that kind of stuff. It's not about shame and blame. It's just saying, hey, this is where I'm at. This is what served me. This is what kept me here without killing myself. Because if I didn't have my negative patterns of behavior, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here, because I could not live my life. And so all of this different layers that I'm going into is just saying, this is where I am. This is where I have been. And if I shame myself, I'm throwing more blocks on myself
Yeah.
and I'm drowning myself and I'm punching myself as I am drowning. And that is what shame is. That is the best visual that I
Yeah.
have been able to come into. I am punching myself in the face as I'm drowning. I don't need to shame myself. I can just say, this is where I'm at and I need help. And I reach out for help, in whatever layer that is. For me, it's, you know what I mean? It's through God, it's through my sponsor, it's through my church members, it's, through my therapist. We can't do this on our own.
And I really want our listeners to, because I know for myself, when I would hear people like yourself speak, and if I was in a place of, stuckness or, oh my gosh, I got so much on my plate, it seemed like that space was so far away. And that person who's speaking, like yourself, if you were speaking, say, to me in an audience, and I was in the audience, I would kind of go, oh, they've got it all together. Nothing's coming their way. Like they got it all. And I think we need to remind our listeners and our audience who's tuning in is that everybody is continually on a journey. And so it's not to say like someone else has got it all together and I don't. We're all growing all the time, and we build resilience. We come to a new, I like to call it, it's kind of like you're climbing up, a climbing wall. It's like you go to this stone, but then you get to go over to this stone and see the wall and the ground from a different perspective, and you get to go up to this space. So it's like, until you take some action, right, that moving step forward, you don't know until you know. So where can our followers, listeners, find you, Marie? Because especially your community, your book, very inspirational and motivational, and really will help a lot of people. So where can people find you to connect with you?
So you can go to sliderbabe.com, SLIDERBABE, sliderbabe.com. And on there, you can get a link to the book. You can get a link to my podcast. You can get my social media links. You can also look at my name directly on Facebook, Marie Slider Henriksen. And I have all of my stuff is online. I post a lot of my poetry, some of my book I put on there. Most of my poetry is on a blog that I have that's connected on there. And I record some of my poems and put them on YouTube and stuff like that. So sliderbabe.com is kind of where everything is for the most part. And I was wondering if you don't mind if I end with a poem with you guys.
That would be
100%. That
that
would
would
be
be absolutely
excellent.
great.
So the you made the comment, and it's kind of perfect with this poem that I literally just wrote last night.
Oh,
Okay.
Oh,
But you made the comment that people might be watching and they might be like, "Oh, she's got her stuff all together." And sometimes that's intimidating and whatnot. And so the one thing that I want to share is yes, I have been through many layers. And I am still going through so much. There is this noise that happens in my head that does not stop. It does not stop. And it is constantly trying to tear me down between the asshole downstairs, is what I call him, Satan, negativity, evil, whatever you want to call it. There's the external forces, and then you've got my addictions, and then you've got my trauma. And there's just this constant noise that goes in. And I have a hard time. My nervous system has a really hard time because I also have all this physical stuff as well. As I said, I was in the military. I ended up getting medically discharged. And ever since then, my physical body has just gone downhill. And then with this genetic disorder and everything. And so I'm just constantly not feeling good, and whether physically, emotionally, spiritually, I have a hard time still a lot. And again, it was just in December when I was in the psych unit and then a PTSD clinic in January. And so I just want to share this last poem. I wrote it literally last night. Um, I had a prompting. I was thinking about this fight that's in my head, and I keep like staring at the fight, like telling it, "Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up." And then I had a prompting a while ago, and it was like, "You are not stronger than that. You're not stronger than that voice, that noise. It's not going to go away. You are not stronger. Focus on me, my higher power. Focus on your journey of healing, and you will move forward and do wonderfully, but stop fighting." So the prompting I got was no more fights, adjust your sights. And I was in the military. And so that just kind of like, and then so the poem came to me last night. Anyways, no more fights. I'm fighting a battle of internal prattle. I cannot see an end. My sights set to kill, yet feeling ill, no enemy to contend. The noise in my head wants me dead or not to live my life. I fear it won't stop until I drop. It stabs just like a knife. The obnoxious sound goes round and round, my nervous system wrecked. Inside, I shrink, then start to sink, losing self respect. The noise is there in every layer, distraction temporary. When I confront, to put it blunt, combat makes me wary. I take a step back, not under attack. I can finally see. Punching at air, no one is there. Why am I hurting me? Then a voice from above, full of love, offers a release. No more fights. Adjust your sights. Focus on my peace. No need to fear the noise you hear. Take one more step toward me. Your brain's a fearmonger. Our side is stronger. From combat, you are set free. And so I just hope if you're listening here and you're struggling with that noise in your head, know that you are not alone. You are not alone. And you also don't have to fight it. Focus on healing, focus on love, focus on joy, focus on reaching out for help, and just keep moving forward. And I'm not going to say that it gets better. I hate when people say it gets better. It gets different. It gets
yeah.
different because we get new tools and we have more support and we have other people that are there, and we start feeling better. We start becoming we one of the things that I say is my story has not changed, but I have become a different storyteller because I understand more about me, and I understand that and I can have compassion for other people and for their traumas and for their addictions and for their patterns of behavior. And I can say, okay, you're reacting this way. It has nothing to do with me, and I can have compassion for you, and I love you anyway. And then another, thing that I have to remind myself is there are no evil people, only evil actions. People do evil actions when they have been traumatized. And so if you are struggling with somebody in your life who you just feel is not good, recognize that it is not that person that is bad. It is their behaviors that are inappropriate based on their trauma responses. So try to have compassion for them, compassion for yourself. I have done some really shitty things. There were some really big amends that I had to make. I hurt many people in my addictions. And for so long, I thought that I was a piece of shit. I just thought that I had no worth, and I thought that I was a bad person. And that is shame. Guilt. I have done bad things. Recognize that it is okay to feel guilt, but shame is not productive.
No.
And then again, don't feel guilty for things that are out of your control. Try to find that ability to reach inside and say, oh, I am sad. I am mourning this, and I can find peace through this.
What a beautiful way to end. Yeah.
Guilt's a funny thing though, because some of the stuff we feel guilty for was because, like, well, for me anyways, alcohol and drugs was my solution. So I did this to get my solution, and then I put my solution down because I want a different solution. Then I beat myself up for what I did to get my solution. And when you get to a point and you look back and go, wow, that was a little crazy to put yourself through all of that.
You did.
And I hope in 5 years, I look back and go, wow, it was a little crazy. Some of the stuff you put yourself through to get to there. Like, that's my biggest hope for myself anyways.
And the poem was amazing, and it reminded me that we're building our resilience as we go along. Where, you know, if you feel like that self-love and self-confidence is way down, we're doing this, like what you're talking about, and seeing the new perspective is building that self-love, building that self-compassion, building that capacity. And that's that, like we talk about the ball rolling, the ball can roll in negative, but the ball can also get bigger and grow in the positive. And so things positively start to grow. And yes, there will always be bumps along the way, hardships, grief, all those things. But you're also building your capacity to be able to work through them. And I know this is something Scott's discovered over the last several years, that when things are hitting him, they hit, but then they dissipate that much quicker. And it seems to be able to go through things that much smoother. And it's this sort of conversation with you, Marie, is extremely important, because I think this is the wave that we have the choice to ride, the wave we have the choice to get on and to keep going on. So thank you very much. We appreciate your time, the wisdom, everything that you shared. And for those who are listening, Marie, we want them to be able to comment and leave a little review on this episode. And maybe there's something that someone wants to inquire, and they can leave it under the show, but they can also inquire with you personally. And for those out there too who are like, I know somebody else who could really use this episode, share the episode, because you never know who you'll reach that day at right the perfect timing. And so thank you very much. And for those out there as well who want to connect with us, or maybe learn a little bit more about us, or become a guest just like Marie was today, you can reach out to us at forwardwalkingchoices.com. And if for some reason you can't get a hold of Marie, contact us. We'll get a hold of Marie for you. But we'll say thank you again, and we wish you all the best in getting your message out there. Thanks, Marie.
And we'll close.
Thank you so much.
Highway.
Yeah.
Kapun krap.
Yes, I'll say kapunka.
Looking for more inspiration around healing, love, growth, and possibility? You can explore our books at payhip.com/Lisa Scott Brearley Authors. And if today's episode meant something to you, we'd love for you to follow the podcast, share it with someone you care about, or join our Soulmates and Suitcases community online. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time.